Hello, this is Archie Dunlop with Talking Astrology with Archie. I'm going to talk about synastry. Synastry is the art of comparing two horoscopes, and it's often used in relationship astrology. But it can be also used in other kinds of astrology, for example, political astrology, for comparing how two politicians are going to get on with each other, or maybe how a president and his commander-in-chief are going to relate, as we have in the Ukraine. So the Ukrainian president is Zelensky. We have his horoscope. And his commander-in-chief, the commander-in-chief of his army, is Zaluzhnyi. I don't have his time of birth, but I have his date of birth. So what I am going to do is compare those two charts and see how they get on and see how it relates to some of the stories that there is a clash between them. For example, here is a newspaper article that came out of the Kyiv Independent. It came out quite a long time ago, March 6, and it's quotes billed as saying Zelensky and Zaluzhnyi have conflicting views on Bakhmut. President Volodymyr Zelensky and Commander-in-Chief of Ukraine's Armed Forces Valery Zaluzhnyi have conflicting views on how the military should handle the situation in Bakhmut, according to unnamed sources within the Ukrainian political leadership. Bild writes that Zaluzhnyi was deliberating a tactical withdrawal from Bakhmut weeks ago over concern for the well-being of his troops. And well-being is an important concept. One star sign that is particularly famous for caring about other people's well-being is that most nurturing of signs, Cancer, and Zaluzhnyi is a Cancerian. So let's have a look at the relevant charts. So here is So let's have a look. So we'll start off with looking at Zelensky's chart. Here's Zelensky. Zelensky has no water in his chart. Certainly none of the traditional non-discovered planets are in water signs. He's got Uranus in Scorpio, but none of the personal planets, Jupiter and Saturn, are in the signs of Cancer, Scorpio, or Pisces. So if someone has got no water signs, they may be a little unfeeling. They may not be too sensitive to other people and their problems. At the same time, we know that Zelensky is an Aquarius. Says he's got a Sun-Venus conjunction in Aquarius. Aquarius has a reputation for being quite aloof, for being detached, not getting involved in the everyday problems of other people. And when you've got a conjunction between the Sun and Venus, it's like Venus, the planet of relationships, is being burnt up. So that suggests a certain coldness, someone who is able to detach and perhaps is not able to fully relate to human suffering and human feeling. Don't be fooled by his broadcasts on Ukraine and how Zelensky is telling the world about the suffering in Ukraine. I mean, he is an actor. We should never forget that. And there is, at least from his chart, a certain sense of detachment. This is probably rather different from Zaluzhny's chart. Sun in Cancer. He cares about the soldiers under his command. Another Cancerian soldier who cared about the soldiers under his command and wanted them to be properly looked after a war was Julius Caesar. Yeah, Julius Caesar was a Cancer. And it was the need to settle troops and give them land, which actually led to the civil war, which Julius Caesar eventually won. So yeah, Julius Caesar was a Cancerian, Alexander the Great was a Cancerian, so we should never ever underestimate Cancerians. At the same time, in business, Elon Musk, he's a Cancerian. So yeah, Cancerians for some reason are tough. I think the reason is that in the Northern Hemisphere, the sun is at its highest in terms of declination above the equator during the sign of Cancer at the time of the summer solstice. So that's certainly something to consider. Now the planets that are interesting, it's not just Cancer. He's got a Mercury-Venus conjunction in Leo, and you can see its opposition Jupiter. I find this interesting, but he does have an exact Venus-Jupiter opposition. That may mean that, I don't know, may have nothing to do with his military side. Maybe he's overly generous to his friends. Maybe there's some area of excess in him, and I don't know what it is, but maybe we'll find out one day. But it is interesting, and that Jupiter opposition Venus is tied up with Mercury. So the question is, how does Zaluzhnyi relate to Zelensky? So we can see this by setting up a bi-wheel. In the inner wheel we have Zaluzhny's chart. Outer wheel we have the chart of Zelensky. And first thing we notice is there is Zaluzhny's Mercury in Leo. Mercury in Leo, he's very clear about his ideas. He knows what he wants. Doesn't like admitting he's wrong. And his Mercury is conjunct Zelensky's Mars. There's something about Zelensky that really annoys Zaluzhny. And the feeling may be mutual. When Zaluzhny says something to Zelensky, Zelensky gets annoyed. Also, Zelensky's Sun-Venus conjunction. Remember that Sun-Venus conjunction, quite aloof, detached, not always considering the human element, also very stubborn. They are two quite stubborn men. Is opposition Zelensky's Mercury. I think the whole way in which Zelensky comes over, and his objectiveness and detachment really annoys Zaluzhny. Perhaps even makes him angry, because Zelensky's Sun conjunct Venus opposition Mars is hitting the way Zaluzhny thinks. And it works both ways, because Zelensky's Mercury is opposition Zaluzhny's Sun. So the way Zelensky talks and calculates upsets Zaluzhny. And we also see there's Zelensky's Jupiter in Gemini, and it's exactly conjunct Zaluzhny's Saturn in Gemini. Saturn is the adult. Saturn is the planet that restricts. The Saturn is a planet that sets limits and boundaries. And then along comes Zelensky's Jupiter in Gemini, having wild ideas, ambitious, going beyond what is possible. And Zaluzhny pushes back against that. I suppose with Bakhmut saying, this is not possible, what you're trying to do maybe. And so there is a clash there. And I think in terms of this synastry, reminded of recent reports of that interview with an AP journalist and Zelensky on a train. And Zelensky said that Bakhmut had to hold, because if Russia took Bakhmut, it would be a PR victory for Putin. A PR victory, not about tactics, strategy, people getting killed. It's all about PR. And I think that's the aloofness of Zelensky. which probably drives Zaluzhny's Mercury crazy. And this is all going to come to a head. This clash involving these Leo and Aquarius planets is all going to come to a head when Mars moves into Leo. Whoops. And I think Mars moves into Leo. Let me just have a look. Let's get it right. Mars moves into Leo end of May, I think. Yeah, on May the 21st. So on May the 21st, Mars moves into Leo. It aspects Zelensky's Mars return. It hits Zaluzhny's Mercury. It makes an opposition to Zelensky's Sun-Venus conjunction, and that may be where the clash and the friction between the two men really blows up. And you know, some people have said that in the end there might be a military coup where the military unseat Zelensky. So you know, this synastry would really suggest that maybe that's possible. Maybe Zaluzhny will flip. Who knows? But anyway, the synastry does suggest that there are problems, and I think it does support the reports that we have seen that Zelensky and that Zelensky and Zaluzhny really don't get on. Anyway, I hope you found that interesting, and yeah, and at the end of May, keep a close eye on Ukraine. Keep a close eye on the relationship between Zelensky and Zaluzhny.